All right, welcome back, everybody. It's nice to see all of you. We are in the course before the last one, so this is our session. We have 2 sessions left, so this is going to be exciting, hopefully. So last time, you all remember, we talked about problem statements and how might be statements. We looked at a lot of examples, and then I gave you all a how might be statement that you ideated upon. So we covered stages 2 and 3 of design thinking. And then your homework was to create a problem statement and a how might be statement based on the persona or empathy maps you completed. So everything is building up on that front because there was a stakeholder map, then the persona and empathy map, then the problem statement and how might be statement. So when I get all of those from you, I'm going to still be keeping in touch with you after this course as well to help you move forward with those, find some resources for you, especially people around Rochester. So just because we finish on Friday doesn't mean I won't be still here to give you feedback or connect you to people. So those are still like assignments I'm expecting from you. You can send them anytime by Friday, or if you need more time afterwards, it should be okay too. So for today's purposes, we are going to be continuing with what we did in ideation. So you were 2 groups. You both answered how might we, one question was how might we make airports a more playful and relaxed environment? And the other one was how might we provide an environmentally conscious and economically affordable alternative to car ownership? So today I'm going to put you in those same groups and we're going to move forward to stages 4 and 5. So the last 2 stages of design thinking, which is prototyping and testing. But before we go into any groups or anything, I'm going to take the first 15 minutes or so, show you what prototyping is, what it can look like, and then we're going to talk a bit about how it might look like in a digital world. Okay, so last time you all remember you did your ideation session and then I made you all narrow down your solution to one final solution. So today, similar to what you did with a problem statement, I want to introduce this other statement format that is called a solution statement. So once you narrow down your ideation to one solution left behind, you can use this sentence to sort of frame the solution as well, to really wrap up what your idea was, so that it's concise, it makes sense, and if you ever present your idea, there's this like 1-sentence explanation of what your solution is, and now you can go more into detail. So this is what the solution statement looks like. It says, if the proposed solution is implemented to address the need, then the user reaches or gains the desired result. And you just plug in your final solution idea to this one. So if you make a mini role-themed park in the airport to address the need for relaxation and joy in the airports, then long-term transit flyers will be able to have a place to relax and do some art and learn more about the culture of that place, something like that. So that was just like my ad-lib attempt at writing a solution statement for one of your problems from last time. So something like that to just concisely summarize what the solution is. Very similar like we did last time. This also directly responds to the how might we statement and the problem statement. So this is a thing you can use. Any questions so far? I think it's a pretty straightforward one. All right. So once you have a solution statement, which isn't mandatory or necessary or anything, it's just a useful little tool, you move on to the stages 4 and 5 of design thinking, the last 2 stages, prototyping and testing. So I'm going to introduce those 2. So first of all, prototyping, which is a big part of design thinking, is the iterative creation of low resolution artifacts or productions that look into different aspects of your solution idea and its design. So prototyping, if you remember the design thinking mindsets, we didn't do this one as an activity, but iterate was one of the mindsets, because a lot of design thinking, community engagement even, is just doing something again and again and again until you get better at it, until you get more experience with it, until you get more feedback from people that are going to be using this stuff. So this is iterative creation, as in you're going to create one prototype, go test it, you're going to get a bunch of feedback, you're going to come back, improve upon that prototype or scrap it, do a new one completely. And that just keeps going and going. That's how you improve upon a solution. So that's what prototyping is. And then the fundamental way you test a prototype, which is the fifth step, testing, is by letting users experience them and react to them. So we're going to be doing this in our class capacity for the purposes of experiencing this stage. So when you guys make prototypes of your solutions from last time, on Friday, we're going to test it on each other. We're going to give you feedback on your prototypes. In the real world, with your community engaged problems you're all exploring, these steps can take a bit longer than they're going to take in our course today, but that's also okay. Like the prototyping stage might take a week or 2 weeks rather than like 1 hour that it's going to take us, but that's also fine. And the testing stage can take weeks rather than like 1 hour of presenting, but you can adapt the duration of these stuff based on the length or how involved your projects are. So here it says, in creating prototypes to test with users, you have the opportunity to examine your solution decisions as well as to test your perception of your users and their needs. So we actually did a test run of this at the very beginning of our course when we did that shoe design experiment and you all designed shoes for your user. That was an opportunity for you to test out your solution, see if your user actually likes it, but also a way for you to see whether you actually met your user's needs. Because the person was in the group with you, this also happened simultaneously. Like as you prototyped, you were also constantly testing because the person in your group, the user, kept saying, this one looks great, or maybe I didn't imagine this one like that. And you constantly adapted and iterated on your prototype. So that's what these steps are. They're kind of very involved with each other. And I'll show you how the design thinking process is represented in the next session. It's usually represented as like the infinity sign because the test directly sort of flows into empathy stage, because remember, empathy stage was about gaining insight, understanding user needs, understanding the core of a problem, etc. And testing stage is literally like that, where you're trying to understand the needs of your user, but now you have a prototype to show and you can sort of test it out based on that. So we're just sort of flowing back into the beginning at this stage. These are some neat designs our graphic designer made last year. So here it says, prototyping and testing is about coming up with ideas that might be useful to people, turning those ideas into realistic mock-ups that you can test, gathering feedback and refining your idea and prototype, and then you do it again. So what's a prototype? It says an early working model that you can show to and talk about with other people. It should be cheap and easy to throw away so that you can cycle through many ideas, learn from your failures, or learn
Dennis
from
just
your...
freeze for all of you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Dennis, you froze.
There you froze.
You were just starting to say an early working model. You were
Okay.
just starting to explain it, so
Am
you
I
didn't get
back?
into it yet. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I think my connection is a bit unstable. Am I back now? Okay. So
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, thank you. So what I was saying was a prototype is an early working model that you can show to and talk to about with other people. It should be cheap and easy to throw away so that you can do multiple versions of a prototype. So you can learn from the failures and from the gain points, and you can find the one prototype that works the best. For example, here are some examples, and I'm going to give way more. It says some post-its to simulate the interface of an app, like put a bunch of post-its, sort of make them all different pages on an app. Acting out a service experience, like a dramatic reenactment of what a service could look like. It says, like, for instance, visiting the emergency room could be a service experience. Like, what would it look like? One of you would have to be the doctor, one has to be like the EMT person, one has to be the patient, that kind of stuff. So prototypes can look like anything and everything. And I'm going to give a lot more examples right now. So here is a prototype. So we talked about it being low cost and low commitment and easy to throw away, which is why most of the time we call this junk prototyping. You gather a bunch of junk like bottle caps, like scissors, cardboard, plastics around the house, any kind of like random stuff that could be made into shapes. Here, students are prototyping a theater experience. So they're making seats. They have the huge like red, what is that called? Like the red curtain of the theater background. And they're just sort of imagining, okay, what do we serve here? How do people sit around here? Like on the very corner next to the arm of this person, they're making like tiny plates of food. It's supposed to represent popcorn. So it can look like something like this. This is usually what a table looks like when you actually get to do this in person physically. A lot of the time, it's just a lot of cutting and sticking things and meshing things together. Here to the very far left, this is a prototype we made at iZone last year, where we were given the prompt to make a jukebox for iZone. So this is our fake jukebox. These are like the discs of music. This is like, it's fun lighting. This is the shape of it. And I think here it has like a pick your song, kind of like the buttons are represented on paper, something like that. This is one of my friends from our first year. We did this prototype during Halloween. We were trying to create a fortress to ward off from zombies, and he made himself a shield and a weapon he wanted to use to like fight zombies. So this is his war gear, and this is his like huge like blade kind of thing. And he's literally standing in a human-sized like fortress. That was our prototype. And to the right, this is a Lego example. Sometimes Legos can be useful as well. This is actually from the Lego store in New York City. I think they have like huge stuff there with Legos. So sometimes prototypes can be Legos as well. I'm going to give a different example because these are all, sadly, as you see, a lot of the time prototyping is prompted to be in person with like arts and crafts sort of stuff. But our challenge right now is to, one, learn about this on the digital world and potentially use prototyping in the digital world for the next year or two, even if you do it with students, with teammates, etc. I'm going to give a different example. Can you all see this video, or is it not showing for you? Oh, it's not showing for you. 1 second. All right, can everybody see?
Yep.
Wonderful. So this is, again, an in-person prototype, but it's a bit different than the other one. So here, they prototyped a babysitting app. And this is literally like each paper is a different screen on the phone. So here, they're opening it, they're clicking on the app. This is the opening. Here it says like about applications. This is the application form. You fill out information about the nannies. These are the profiles, contact information, and this is the business card. So let's go back here. So you can get extremely creative with how prototypes look. Like they can be anything. Sometimes they're not physical products, like they're not an app, they're not like a device, they're not a holdable thing. Sometimes they're more like experiences, conversations, or services. For instance, I prototyped a solution where it was about hosting monthly neighborhood like gatherings, like dinners, but each month a different community stakeholder was the host, and I had to show that. So I used paper cups to represent different people in the community. Then I used yarn, like different colored yarn, to show how many people met each other each month. So each yarn, like red was the first month, blue was the second month, and I put them around each different stakeholder to represent who met each other first month of the dinners, second month of the dinners, etc. Like it's not like you can't really represent sometimes a service in a physical sense. So sometimes you get creative about how you want to represent the function of the service. So prototypes are, okay, I'm gonna move. So prototypes don't always look the same. They can be very different. You can make prototypes of products, experiences, and or services. And not all solution ideas are of tangible things, like I just said, such as a product, but sometimes they're of services, conversations, and experiences. You can prototype those as well. A prototype is an easy, low-cost, low-commitment way for you to imagine your solution in a different light, turning your idea like from your head when you were brainstorming it, turning that into something you can look at, something you can touch, something you can turn around. It helps you figure out details, makes you see a whole new aspect of the idea that you weren't thinking of. It helps you solidify final detail aspects of your solution. So it's just a good way to sort of make a tangible version of your idea so that you can test it as you make it, and then you can test it with people. I'm going to stop there for a second and ask if there are any questions or feedback or comments. Everybody feeling good about it so far? Sort of? Okay. All right, let's talk about how to prototype. So the first important thing is think about what you're trying to learn with your prototype, and create low resolution objects and scenarios which can sort of probe some of those questions. Like for instance, when I was making that community stakeholder prototype, I could have made a dinner table and put a bunch of people around it, and that could have also been a prototype. But what I was trying to see was how many people can I connect to each other by hosting monthly dinners in the community. So my prototype leaned more towards seeing those connection points, like who was meeting each other, who could be my early adapter, like who could be the first person to host this dinner. So I was trying to answer, like, how can I increase communication between community stakeholders by having them host a dinner together. In the nanny app that I showed the video where they were doing the cart switches, the question they were trying to answer was, what kind of information should be in my app that would make it trustworthy for parents? Like, what would make parents feel safe if they opened up the app? Which is why in it there was a lot of information about communication, skills of the person, like addresses of the nannies, that kind of stuff, as well as their pictures. So you knew directly the people you were dealing with. So think about what you're trying to learn with your prototype. That's important. And then the second aspect is staying low resolution, because it will allow you to pursue many ideas you got without committing to a direction too early on. Imagine, like, for big businesses who are trying to launch a new product, imagine spending a whole year paying millions of dollars to make a prototype, and you only get to test it at the end of that year. And turns out it sucks. You just wasted $1 million on something that doesn't work. Versus you made a really cheap, like, cardboard version of it, or you made a draft electronic app version of it that took you a month or 2 months. You tested it, turned out some aspect of it was crap, some other aspect was greatly appreciated, so you focused more on that. So low resolution means you are low cost, low commitment. You do it in like an hour or 2 hours in our sense, or if it's a huge project, like $1 million project, you do it in 2 weeks or a month rather than a whole year. So it's important to just make a draft version of it, put it out, and then see how it turns out. This actually reminds me of like my English or history classes where professors are like, give me a draft so I can give you feedback. It's exactly like that. A draft is a prototype, basically. Here it says the objective is not simply to create a mock-up or a scale model of your solution concept, but it's to create experiences to which users can respond to. Because we're making the prototype with the idea that our users will give us feedback on it. They will test it. They will tell us what they like and what they don't like. So think about, rather than like I'm making a mock-up or a scale model of it, think about what kind of feedback do I need from the users so I can make my prototype that will be geared more towards that. And then lastly, it says, bring resolution to the aspects that are important for what you're trying to test. So focus more on the aspects that are big and important rather than like the small little details. Don't worry about those. This is literally a draft. Here are the 4 main sort of suggestions people make. So it says, start building. Even if you're unsure what you're doing, the act of just picking up some materials, sadly this is for in-person stuff, should be enough to get you going. In the next slide, I'm going to give you some digital versions of how to do prototypes. So when it says start building, it means like start thinking, start just like drafting some ideas, and it should push you in a direction. Don't spend too long on one prototype. We talked about that. Build with the user in mind. We talked about that. And then here it says ID a variable, identify what's being tested with each prototype. We are going to make just one prototype. So you can ID multiple variables you want to test, like trustworthiness of it, usability of it, how happy it makes the customers, etc., etc. However you want to, which variables you want to focus on, you can pick. I'm going to stop there again. Any questions or anything that wasn't clear? All right. Okay, so prototyping in the digital world. I'll say it right out. This is not an expertise of mine, sadly, because I didn't ever have to do prototyping in the digital world. I always do it with like I said here, my favorite is junk prototyping, as in gather up scrap paper, paper cups, like plastic stuff around the house and build it into a like physical holdable thing. But unfortunately, we can't do that in this class, and you might in the future need to do it in the digital world as well. So I put down some starter ideas for prototyping in the digital world. So you can do something like an online collaborative art, or you can all use like an app that lets you draw at the same time, like we did for the shoe design, or maybe even 3D model something. You can do a dramatic reenactment of the user experience of your service or product. Like we said, if you go to the emergency room, you can act out what it would look like or what it would feel like. And you can do that over Zoom. You can do a pre-recorded pitch if you don't like doing things in person. You can do like an elevator sale where you're describing the important design components, or you're describing the user experience of your idea. You can do like a dramatic theatric reading of sorts if you want to be a bit more humorous. You can do a fake commercial of your idea from the user's perspective, or from like you're launching this rolled theme park. What could a commercial of that look like? Something like that. Or this is an alternative example. If you want to do something like this, everyone can make one common component of the design in the physical world, like on your own. Then you can put them online via like a stop motion app or a video or a Photoshop, or just put images together if you want to like combine it into one prototype. Am I lagging or am I okay? Okay. Okay. But if you're doing individual components of the design, you should all agree to give each other feedback as you do it, because it's important to do this as a team all together, so you're all headed in the same direction. But because we're being a bit flexible with how we're doing prototyping, you can all do like one aspect of it at home with scrap stuff, then put them together online. Or you can do like a draft version of a website, like a Weebly website or something like that. Susan, actually, I was trying to find the link for your 540 West main website you made for the COVID challenge. So if you can put that in the chat, maybe people can check it out as a prototype example as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Susan made like a prototype website for a challenge she was doing last month. So that could also be like a version of a prototype. So these are just my starter ideas. You can mesh stuff up, do multiples at like one go. If you have a completely different like skill set, or you know of an app, you can use those as well for our activity that's coming up. So these are just some ideas I could think of that could be prototyping in the digital world. So if you have any more ideas, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll add them to our working list as well. And you can think about, yeah, there you go. Susan put her example in the chat as well. And I'll put those in our list. Okay. I'm going to move on from the concept to the the activity now. So is everybody okay? Do you have any questions in your head right now, or any comments you want to make about the prototyping stage?
No.
Okay. Moving forward. Okay, so we have about 30 minutes left. I did good timing for once. So you'll have the 30 minutes left. I will first ask everybody to create a solution statement based on your final solution idea from our last session. Then brainstorm which type of prototype could work best for your team, like just have a conversation about it. And then you'll have the remainder of the session to work on your prototype. And our to-do until Friday, for Friday session, will be to take this time in class and probably another 30 to 45 minutes outside of class with your team to finalize your prototype and be ready to test it, as in either present it to us or have us engage with it in a creative way, like an activity you want to do during our Friday session. Each group will have 5 to 10 minutes to have us test it, like you either present it or you have us engage with it. You'll have 5 to 10 minutes to do that. And then after that, we'll have 5 to 10 minutes where we give you feedback on your prototype, tell you what we liked and disliked, etc. In total, don't spend more than an hour and a half on this prototype, or in general, any very early stage prototype, because remember, it's supposed to be low cost, low commitment, and easy fix. I will never, I won't want to hear, we didn't have time to finish this, because if you leave the prototype at any stage, that's still a prototype. It's not supposed to be finished. That's okay. So you'll have 30 minutes today. So don't spend more than maximum an hour until Friday outside of class on this.